Welcome back everyone to another tutorial. Today it's just going to be a simple one. I want to show you how you can set up the health system of the enemy, and the moment I'm shooting it, it will get damage, as you can see, and also has some bounce back effect, and the moment it falls down it will also disappear or destroy itself. Great, so let's get right into it. So let's set up now the health bar, and I want to set up two FSMs today, one for the health bar and one for, let's say, a fall def, because I can also bounce the enemy off and I don't want the enemy to fall forever. So at a certain speed, the enemy will just die then. But let's get started with the enemy. And what I also want to add is on the sprite. And the sprite I'm just going to call enemy. And here I'm going to add also a circle collider, because I also want the enemy. And this one is a trigger. And let's just make it that when you hit the horns, that also the player will get some damage. What we're going to do to add a health bar is I'm going to the UI and I'm gonna add a slider here, and it's quite big. There it is. So what I'm gonna do is here, instead of the render mode screen space overlay, I'm gonna do it in world space. So now this canvas is in the world space. So you have also a Playmaker user interface with all the health bar, and now I have a new canvas in the world space. I'm gonna put it on the player layer. Let's put it in front, or let's say on the height of the enemy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale it down a little bit, 0.01 and also 0.01. There we go. And now I'm just going to drag it down here. My scene is somewhere down here. And you can see the other enemies there. And here it is. Let's just put it on top here of the enemy, and it's already as a child of the enemy. And what I can do, of course, is maybe resize it a little bit to make it fit on top. There you go, like that. And in the slider, what I can do is set the max value to 5, and you can see now that it slides from left to right. Now you can set the colors up, and this is up to you. Usually what you can do is easy, is just go to the fill area here, and perhaps let's just make the one in front green. There we go. And the background color we make maybe red. There we go. So if now the slider is being slid from left to right, you can see it's screen to right, but it still has this funny white thing there. Make sure let's also put whole numbers. There we go. And there's this little handle, and I don't really want to have this handle. And what we can see now is that the fill area is not totally on top of the red, so I'm just going to do it like this. Put it on top. And if I slide now to 0, it still has here a little bit of area. I can also just put it like this. And let's see now how it looks. Yeah, that was of course not really the desired effect, but what we can do is just put the fill area like this, and I believe that now it will be very small, and the moment it hits the 0, it will, delete the enemy anyway. What I can also do is put a canvas group, and by default I could, let's say, make the slider by default, let's say, invisible. So the moment I hit him the first time, I would make it visible. This is up to you. It's optional. I like it that way. Let's just leave it on 1 for now, so we can work with this. And you can see now that the canvas is a lot smaller, and this will stick with the enemy, so that this bar will follow him around. Perhaps let's put it a little bit more there. Good, very nice. And now we want to, of course, control the slider, the value of 5 within a FSM. And now I will give this enemy 5 health, but you can of course give it much more health if you want. So let's add a new FSM and let's call this the enemy health. And what I'm going to do is set float value. There it is. And I'm going to make a new variable and call this enemy health. And initially I want to set it to 5. And here we're also going to add the UI slider set value. There we go. Now, of course, I need to specify a game object, and I'm just going to drag in the slider here, and the value will be set then to enemy health, which is set to 5. Great, I'm just going to finish. And this is just the start state, and I won't touch this state again. So I'm just going to start with setting this value. And here now I want to have a trigger damage. And here I will just do collision to the event. And the collider attack will be then attack. And once it collides, I want to set finished. And one optional thing you could do here, and this is up to you, is to set the rigid body, set property, and shared material, physics material to D. And this is up to you if you want to do this. Yeah? But I want to have a standard material of the player. So here it's also, the rigid body is usually player, which doesn't have any friction. But the moment I get damage, I want to add some friction, otherwise perhaps the player will bounce away because of the rigid body mass and size, so I can bounce it off easily. And with this, I can just set the friction to player in a normal state, right? We will see later what this does. So, and now the main one is damage enemy. And what I'm going to do here is float add. And of course the variable is enemy player, and I'm just going to add -1. I don't want to do this every frame, of course. And I want to set, or let's say slider set value, because it doesn't do it automatically unless I make a separate FSM for that. I'm just going to specify the game object again. Here's the slider. And what I'm going to do is do enemy health. And here it had -1, so it should go -1 here. And here now I can just copy and paste set the property. And here I could put friction material. So it gets damaged, so it's stuck on the ground a little bit. It won't move so far away the moment I'm damaging it. Then I can create an object. This is of course fully optional. I create an object, spawn point, it's the basic enemy. And what I want to create is a damage particle effect. So I'm just going to put damage1 here. I can also play a sound. And let's not make it too loud, but maybe 0.3. And I think I have a clip here as well, which is called hit hurt or something. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. And in this case, here I could also then set the alpha. And I'm just going to add it now. Set canvas group alpha to 1 and specify game object. I'm just going to do canvas. Just put it 0 by default, and the moment I hit it once, it will be set to 1. Okay, so I do -1 here, I update the slider, I update the rigid body property, I spawn a particle effect at the enemy's location, which is the same particle effect which is also on the player. I play a sound. Good. And then I just finish. So it happens all in an instant. And then I make one state, and I'm just gonna check if alive, because it has 5 healths. So I want to see, should I play now a death animation, or should I play a, let's say, hurt or get damage animation? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a float compare here. Float compare. There it is. And I'm going to check the enemy health. And I'm just going to check it with 1. And if it's equal to 1, let's make a new event. Let's just call it still alive. If it's greater than 1, it's still alive. But if it's less than 1, then I want a new event. Let's call it dead. Let's add those transitions. Still alive. And dead. And in case of still alive, I'm just gonna make one here, and dead, I'm gonna make one. And let's call this state then the animate, and also perhaps cooldown. So perhaps I want to animate for a very short time that it got damage. And let's start by adding the weight. Oh, not the random weight, normal weight. Weight, and just very short, 0.2. And we're going to do finished. And what I can do now is go to the sprite. And if you look at the animator, at the moment it only can walk and idle. And let's just add the animation here. This is the player, I suppose. Style, create new clip. And let's call it hurt. And now let's go to these files and got hit. And there's a got hit animation. And let's just take these and drag them in. And you can see it goes very fast. Bam. That. All right. And in the animator, what I want to do is go from any state. And I'm just going to add a trigger here. And let's call it hurt. I'm just going to add a transition here. And let's just make the hurt trigger there. And then I'm just going to make a transition to either monster idle. And blah, it's quite a mess. So let's see, it's any state, I just have the hurt animation. And once I'm back to idling, I'm just going to do speed less than 0.1. And walking should be then, let's put speed greater than 0.1. And here I'm going to do has exit time. So I want to make him play the whole hurt. Let's go back to the animation, to the enemy, to the playmaker. And let's just trigger animator or set animator trigger. And we're going to specify the game object, the sprite here, and the trigger is hurt. Remember, usually you can select it. So there we have it. What I could also add is a bounce effect, set some velocity, make it jump around a little bit. But let's leave it like this for now. I'm going to add a transition here, finished. I'm going back to damage. So where it's waiting for another attack, then just -1 again until I'm on 0. And then I'm going to go to the dead state. And in the dead state, what I could do is, of course, also add the animation again to the sprite animator. I can create new clip. I can make that. And there's also some files here that are defeated. There's a lot of files, as you can see. Boom. So that's quite cool. Let's just leave it like that. And from any state, we're just going to add another trigger, died. make transition, that, make transition, perhaps exit. And here we're just gonna make the died trigger. And let's go back to the enemy, the Playmaker. And let's trigger animator. And what was it again? Do you guys remember? Died, yeah. Died, and of course not the owner. That's why I cannot select it. Died. There we go. Let's call the state as well. Died. It's gonna wait very short. And I have to time the wait together with this animation. 0.2. And then here finished. And then destroy self. So this should be the basic health setup. One more thing which I want to add, which is I think just handy to have, is a fall dead. So if the enemy starts to fall because you pushed it off, then I want it to also die at a certain amount of time. And how to do this is I'm just gonna make here an FSM and just call it fall death. And it's a very easy one. What I'm gonna do is check fall speed, and I'm just going to get velocity 2D, and I'm just going to make a new variable here, and I'm going to call it full speed, and I'm going to do it every frame. It's in the world space, and I'm going to do float compare, and I'm just going to drag it down, and I'm going to check the full speed against -30, and you have to check in your game if that's good. And if it's less than, I want I actually just want it to finish. Less than, finished. And what I can do here is just destroy self. I can of course also make a sound, a falling sound, or let's say death. The moment I push it down, now it will then death, and I can of course add a sound or whatnot. I don't need this animation, I just want it to disappear. But it's up to you how you set this, but I just like to have this as well. Good. So I'm just gonna take one step back. I'm just gonna wait 1 second, but what I'm also gonna do is disable, let's say, the other FSMs which will make it walk. So what I can do is set velocity 2D, and I'm just gonna zero it out like this, which is fine. And I'm just gonna do this every frame. And I'm just gonna enable FSM. And let's just do the movement enemy, and I don't want it enabled anymore. I'm also not gonna reset this. So like this movement enemy should be off. And then it will destroy itself. Here I could of course also add a sound, squash sound, or anything you like. I don't have a nice sound right now. And what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to make it like this, that the enemy's damage area is all around it. As long as I touch it in this area, there's a trigger, and then I will get damage. Something like this. Let's check the overlap with the other collider. Okay. So I shouldn't be on top of this enemy. Then I will get enemies. Then I will get shot with damage. And you can see the enemies there. And the moment now I'm shooting it, it will get the bounce effect. And you can see the health bar going down as well. And there you see if it's standing still, it will fall down. But now it also died. Let's have one more look. If I shoot it like this, if I'm gonna jump on it, I'm gonna get damage as well. So I just have to shoot it down, and then it played the death animation. As you can see, it was a little bit too fast, so I just should make that a little bit smoother, and then make sure it disappears at the end of that. So that's the health bar setup. In the next tutorial, I will set up the basic attack as well, and I'm gonna make an enemy which can charge us. Great, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you liked it. Also, it would be great if you guys can share your stuff. If you're building any game using my tutorials, please feel free to share them on my Discord channel. It's in the comments. So, see you guys in the next video. Cheers!